And we're gonna
I
start.
have a cold brew.
We're gonna start with the coldest of the brews. Our negative Nancy in Seattle, Mr. Patrick.
Yeah, it's also just more fun to be a little bit mean, and these people are all dead. It's fine. I would say my hot take is this is Top Gun without the excitement.
This is the blockbuster that made blockbusters. Nothing has changed the blockbuster format like this has, where you have a ridiculous budget but then kill it in the box office. This is literally the model of movies today, 100 years before it is. So welcome to the modern blockbuster, people. Wings started it all. You're welcome, Michael Bay.
It's alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
I love you.
I know. What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
I see dead people.
Milk was a bad choice.
Hello and welcome to another episode of How to Be a Movie Snob. Joining you, your host with the most, coming from you from Southern California by way of Burbank, by way of Kirkland. No, where are you? Somewhere near Seattle. Bothell, Patrick, Gillette. Hey.
Oh, are we doing last name?
Burbank.
That's right.
Are we doing
Sorry.
real identity?
Patrick, unknown
and
name.
Social security numbers.
That's right. Now, Patrick, where do you live again? What exactly is your address?
Yeah.
Hey, Pat, good to see you, buddy.
Hey, it's great to see the both of you.
Good to be seen by you.
As always.
The likes of you for this picture. And joining us from the beautiful, sunny, sometimes, but definitely not today, Dallas, the lovely Mariah. That's right. Her name's Mariah, not Dallas.
No.
And it's not her last name either. Hi, Mariah. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Good to have you here.
Here I am.
Hey, Ryan.
Hey, guys.
And your host with the most, the one, the only, the guy with the microphones. It's me. It's Seth.
He has the most audio gear.
I have the most
Of all
audio
of
gear,
us,
so
for
therefore
You're the most something.
I'm the most something. And I'm the most hostiest of the hosts, apparently, because it's my gear. That's
agree.
right, folks.
And he talks first?
I talk first, and therefore that's how I get friends, having the most gear. We're friends, right,
and
guys?
talking a lot.
Or we're friends?
Yeah.
We're friends, guys.
It's
Friends by blood.
You know, it's an exchange of services.
Guys, guess what? We watched a movie this week.
Yeah.
All three of us. I guess let's little catch up before we get into the movie. What else you guys been watching this week?
Oh, I watched the new Insidious.
Ooh.
The Red Door.
Yes, I watched The Red Door.
Ooh. Anything?
And
Not my favorite Insidious movie.
no, it's there.
Not
It's
very
there.
scary, I can tell you.
No.
No. I watched Shoresy, which is a spin-off of Letterkenny, which is a very funny Canadian-based show you can catch on the Hulu. So it was only 6 episodes. They're only half hour, so it was a very quick binge. That was the last thing I watched, I believe.
Were you satisfied?
I was, but it goes so fast. I could use more. It's such a weird, fast-talking, witty, but the most juvenile show ever, too, thing. And it's Canadian on top of it, which is appealing to me.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy it.
Like compared to Gilmore Girls, like where is it on your scale of watching?
I mean, there's the same kind of like repartee between characters.
Ooh,
like
good
everyone's got, snappy remarks, and there's weird little in jokes, and I don't know. It's a distant cousin to a Gilmore Girls type show,
Nice.
but then way more crude and Canadian. Than
Yeah.
that.
Gilmore
which,
Girls was
you know,
just
maybe-
north, not in Canada.
Oh, get out of here. Well,
Yeah.
my mistake.
And, you know, it's bro-y hockey culture
Yes.
as well. So that's a layer to it.
There we go. That's pretty good.
How about you, Seth? What have you been watching?
Well, I have been reading some teen drama. Have I talked about this? I jumped into the Maze Runner series and the Divergent series, which I've never actually read before, but I did watch the movies when they came out. And I realized...
I watched the Maze Runners.
Yeah, I watched the Maze Runner movies.
They're all right.
I realized why people were so upset at the second movie after reading the books, because the second movie is basically a zombie movie, and the book is not a zombie movie, or a zombie book, really. So I was really surprised. I was like, oh, that's why people go pretty upset, because it wasn't really anything like what would happen in the books. Like, you had some of the same characters. So this is a weird like tangent here, but I almost feel like you should watch the movies before you read the book. This is a very unpopular take, but I feel like
that's sometimes true.
It's
not always.
It's something that you can enjoy it for what it is, and then you can dive deeper into the book. It's like you get the behind the scenes when you read the book, which is great, but
or at least give yourself distance.
Yes.
I think if you read a book and then watch the movie right away, you will likely be disappointed. Very rarely.
If I had started by watching the Twilight movies, I would never have finished them or read the books. But I did read and enjoy the books.
Yeah.
And so I powered through the movies because I thought, I got to do this. And I was always disappointed.
I was thinking through movies that stand alone without the...
They are garbage.
They are garbage.
Pretty trashy.
But hey, we got the next Batman from them, so I don't know how we feel about that.
He's actually
he's a good actor.
Leonardo DiCaprio before him. He's aged out of the dreamboaty, gross thing he was stuck in, and you're like, oh wow, you are an interesting actor.
By the way,
we can get over those.
You should watch
you did.
Twilight with his commentary, because that is very entertaining.
Ooh, probably
because he kind of makes fun of it the whole time. And
sure,
it's pretty great.
Yeah.
So
I think they all did. Really.
Yeah, I've decided when you're making a movie from a book, which 80% of the movies, every statistic is 65% of statistics are made up on the spot. Sure. A lot of movies are made from books, but you have to pick a part of the book. You have to miss correctly. The best example, of course, will be The Shining. It is nothing like the book, but they chose a very cool way to do it wrong. And then rather than picking
so much that it became its own thing.
Exactly right. And I was thinking through this with movies I enjoyed, and I enjoyed the books, like Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. But then things I didn't enjoy as much.
Those are very faithful.
Yeah, they are very faithful, but of course they cut out whole characters and whatever else. But it missed in the right way.
Yeah.
The Hobbit, I would argue, did not miss in the correct way.
Well, yeah.
Because they tried to do other stuff. And same thing, a lot of the times I feel
also,
the misses...
rushed.
Yes, there's always the rush production and special effects. There's a lot of things that are going to... But picking one or two things to do right from the book and then kind of Hollywooding the rest, I'm usually okay with it. Hunger Games.
Well, knowing what your readers expect. Hunger Games stayed pretty close.
I enjoyed that, and it was... And I read the books before that was one other one I read the books before I watched the movies. I was like,
I feel like they caught all the important stuff.
It got and the acting. I do have to say, the problem with Hunger Games and the Divergent series is the actors were just a little younger. Some of them are quite good actors now, but it's a little rough.
Yeah.
Early in all their careers. And so you can kind of see that. And that's probably true with a lot of teen movies. So anyways, that was my weird, going down a side road of books to movies. I've been into.
So you were reading this week.
I was reading and watching afterwards.
I don't know that you should talk about reading.
I know. I try not to on this.
We don't encourage it on this podcast.
Unless it's, of course, a movie that requires weeding. Which brings us, folks, to our movie this week. You're welcome, guys.
There was a
That
point.
was a long transition, but we got there.
That's why he's the host. With
That's
them.
why. That's why he does the chatting.
Oh my gosh. Guys, that's right. We're going back into the land of silent film where you not only have to watch, but you have to read. And we're not talking because it's in a foreign language, folks. We're talking because it's before they had talkies. This wonder came out in 1927, the last year before they had talkies, because if you know when the Jazz Singer came out, it was that same year, 1927. This has been called the last great silent film. This has been called a lot of things. It's one of the most expensive movies ever made. Some people still argue it is the most expensive made, and we will talk about that also because of certain funds that were non-disclosed.
Certain donations that were made.
Exactly right. But this is the first Best Picture award receiver.
First.
The movie
Best
is
production.
Best production. We'll
what they
dive into that, but it is, when you look at every list, it is the first quote unquote Best Picture of the Academy Awards, and this movie is, of course, Wings.
Not
the sitcom, the movie.
No.
Awesome. So, guys, as always, welcome to How to Be a Movie Snob. We're going to do some cold brews and hot takes. And we're going to start.
I have a cold brew.
We're going to start with the coldest of the brews, our negative Nancy in Seattle, Mr. Patrick.
Yeah, it's also just more fun to be a little bit mean, and these people are all dead. It's fine. I would say my hot take is this is Top Gun without the excitement.
Ooh.
Nice. That's good. Yeah.
Pretty cruel.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. And then we're just gonna let that hang in the air.
Yeah. We'll talk about it because I am
You
silent.
gotta
I am.
live-
This is
you
the
gotta
last
live
time
with that.
I'll be silent when we make that comment. But we'll go further later. But I'll let that sit. I'll let that get out
We gotta
there.
cut to a card where you.
Yeah.
Say-
Wah,
Seth-
wah. Mariah.
You know, I had a really good hot take earlier today.
Yeah.
No idea what it was.
Oh yeah. No, it happens.
It's gone.
Old age is tough. It's really tough.
It
It's,
is. It is.
Things just start to go.
In your early 30s, you know, your brain kind of starts to melt
It
a bit.
starts to go. My hot take is
I might come up with it again. It might come back.
this is the blockbuster that made blockbusters. Nothing has changed the blockbuster format like this has, where you have a ridiculous budget but then kill it in the box office. This is literally the model of movies today, 100 years before it is. So welcome to the modern blockbuster, people. Wings started it all. You're welcome, Michael Bay.
A lot of firsts. A lot of firsts happened here, guys.
Oh no, this is the unapologetic big budget blockbuster. This is hilariously, and it plays out like it does too. It's yeah, no complaints.
Oh yeah, in so many ways. Yeah.
So many ways.
You're dead on there. Good
And I
hot take.
didn't know it was that much of a, because when I thinking about war movies, I did not realize, I'm like, oh, this is like this is a better made Pearl Harbor.
That was the other movie. Story-wise,
This is way more interesting than the Pearl Harbor
basically Pearl Harbor.
that came out way later. I'd watch this over Pearl Harbor any day.
Yeah.
That might be true. That movie was good.
No argument.
Yeah, same budget too. That's a weird thing. All right, Mariah.
Yeah. What are we talking about here?
You- are you-
Numbers?
no more-
You
no-
want some numbers?
The numbers are great because that's where we
Or
get
are
into
you
the
hoping I
blockbuster.
remembered my hot take?
Yeah, I hope.
Because I
hit.
didn't.
Okay, we're moving on. Moving on.
It's
Nope.
coming later.
Come back.
Okay,
It's going to be a
come back to
surprise hot take in the middle.
Surprise. No, well then you can do two things. You can do the summarizing, or you can start out with a number, the
All
money
right.
maker.
I think I can summarize okay in this. There's a pretty steady plot here. All right, you're in this small town. And,
dare we say not original plots?
well, maybe at the time it was pretty original for a movie.
No, it wasn't. Nope, they acknowledged it definitely was not.
Well, anywho.
It was not.
We're not talking about
Wasn't
that.
meant to be.
No.
Anyway, summary. Girl loves boy. Boy loves the popular girl from the big city.
And the car. Yeah.
Popular girl from big city loves the rich guy. And there's a little bit of confusion as the Great War starts as to who the popular girl really loves. There's a little bit of
only confusion from one guy. Everyone else kind of figured it out. Everyone knew it except for one guy.
Yeah, Jack. Jack was mistaken. He thought Sylvia loved him, but Sylvia loves David. Yeah. Mary loves Jack. Anywho, they go off, get trained to be pilots. David and Jack, that is. Not
Mary. And
Sylvia does nothing.
Sylvia, no, she gone.
She sits on her swing the whole time. And
I don't think she ever left her swing.
No, that was one day of shooting for her part.
Yeah, not a lot of work. So they go off. They hate David and Jack hate each other, and then they go to boot camp and get into a real good boxing match because apparently during boot camp you fight each other.
A peach of a fight.
A peach of a fight.
I didn't hear a line. I read a line.
It's a great line.
And as David is spitting up chocolate syrup blood, he smiles at Jack, and they become best friends.
Yeah, for sure.
He could take a wallop.
He could take a wallop.
He's okay in my book.
That's right. So they're besties, learning to be pilots together. They have a roommate briefly, and he perishes.
Oh, can we talk about him? Just get out of the way.
Hottie McHotterson.
Hottie McHotterson. Woo! They say it was a sensation. He was the most popular actor in this movie.
And he was unknown before he did this.
Folks, if you do not know who we're talking about, the one, the only Mr. Gary Cooper.
Humana.
Yeah, and that I didn't realize it was Gary Cooper because it's such a young Gary Cooper, but man,
super
duper.
Not
familiar with the man, so it was he just seemed like tall, thin guy.
Yeah,
and he had a rugged handsomeness to him that I appreciated.
Yeah, confidence, a little too much for his character.
Few too many.
In charge of the brand advertising.
Yeah,
that was good. Anyways, that was a big sensation. Him, this appearance in this movie, like people swooned and kind of.
He's a star.
Yeah, they knew he was a star immediately just for that one.
scene. Star who was romantically involved with Clara Bow. Actually,
get out of here. Yeah. He's on set for 2
there was
seconds.
a lot of matchmaking happened in this movie.
Yeah, I think Clara Bow was involved with a lot of people though, so we'll get to that later though, I suppose.
She's a flirt.
Yeah,
as they say.
She's a bit of a flirt. Yes. So then, speaking of Clara Bow, Mary decides to join the Women's Ambulance Driving League, ? If you can drive something, you can join. Yeah. So she gets to go to France too. They're there. The boys are heroes. They get some leave in Paris. They get wasted on bubbles.
Blotto.
Blind drunk. Mary runs into Jack, tries to tell him, hey, you've been called back, buddy. And he can't even see her. All he sees is bubbles. Some unfortunate circumstances happen as she's trying to get him to go to sleep and changes her clothes. And some MPs show up and say, you got to resign. So she loses her gig and has to go home.
The most hilarious thing I've ever heard. So wait. So if you sleep with someone, you get kicked out of the army? How dare you?
I think if you're just in a gentleman's room, really.
It's so confusing.
Being undressed didn't help.
I suppose not. I mean, was she taking
Although
advantage
he
of
was
him?
dressed. Come
Yeah,
on.
it's very confusing.
Yes. Anyway.
We don't have ladies like that in this service. You're out.
Who knows if Jack really ever finds out about this?
Yeah, they do not resolve that.
No. That is an unresolved plot point. Anywho, they go back and David apparently gets shot down and they all think he's dead.
Yep.
But guess what? Not dead.
Not dead. But
Crawling through the weeds.
But Jack sure thinks he's dead. He's
And
going
he's
on a
angry.
blind rage.
He's angry.
Which happens to coincide with, of course, when the Allies come together and do their final push for World War One, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the Allies.
Not quite accurate, I'm guessing, for the old historical side, but we'll move on from there.
I think the battle was... A few of the battles in this were fairly accurate. But, yeah. They sped up the timeline, I think. But, anywho, Jack shoots a bunch of people down. Anybody who's one of the bad guys or thinks he's one of the bad guys. In the meantime, David steals a plane and is trying to get back over. Jack thinks he's one of the bad guys and shoots him into a house. And he's dying. Jack realizes it. He's real sad. David says, "No, it's okay, buddy.
It's cool.
It's cool you killed me." And then the war's over. Oh, dear.
It's war.
It's war.
Anything happens in war.
Anything happens in war. So they go home. Jack's sad about it. Says he's sorry to David's parents. Parents are okay with it, too. They're very understanding. Jack realizes, I love Mary.
Yep. The least surprising end of that story.
Then they kiss, and it's over.
And then Mary's like, forget about all that stuff that happened in the war.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're over
Forget
it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter anymore.
Forget. Okay, let's talk about our reactions because it's your classic love triangle, war happening in the background, and
I think it's like a love square.
Love square. Well, it's like a Jack's the square.
But is it really?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bromance, this movie.
It really is.
It's a bit of a bromance.
The bromance was like strong. It was a strong bromance. There was fingers through the hair. Like it was really like
heavy petting.
Heavy petting. This movie was considered risque for the male kissing, even though it was, fraternal kissing. Yeah.
That's what they. Oh, that's funny. Because I mean, yeah, he's dying. Come on, what's wrong with a bro giving a little kiss?
Yeah.
There is like a
little
same-sex lady couple in that great tracking shot, but it's sort of.
We'll talk about that too. That
you fly through it.
Let's take a little quick break for a second. Hold on.
We lost you, Pat, for a sec.
Well, I see myself, and I look great.
Oh, good. So if you see us, you see you.
But I don't see you.
Could I get like
I
a
just see myself.
chalk Sharpie and we could draw Patrick back on here?
You guys froze.
Yeah.
And then it says you left the meeting.
Oh,
That's sad.
we'll come back.
Yeah, we'll come back. I wonder.
Come back.
Coming at you.
Probably because they're watching.
Looks like the camera died.
We'll tell them to stop. Join.
Oh, like you didn't have. There you are.
Okay,
Hey.
cool. Still.
I remember exactly where you were, so there will
I
be
do.
no jump cut.
Let's go back to the kissing.
Heavy petting.
Yes, heavy petting. And now he's gone.
He's so rude.
I'm out.
Gets up.
And he's back. Heavy petting. How many ways can we say heavy petting? Heavy petting? Heavy petting.
Pat
so I
text
wanna
says
go
your
back-
video stopped.
Thanks.
I want to go back to. Well, I don't know. Do we also want to talk about like?
Let's do
impressions?
Let's do first impressions first, because then we'll jump into the plot and
We'll
like
get
kind of
back
tear it
to
apart.
the heavy
Because
petting and the nudity.
We got to get back to a
Dude.
little bit awkward.
1927.
relationships.
This movie's dope. Like this movie is very watchable. This movie had stunts that I was so impressed by. It had enough of the classic love story triangle that was I thought was pretty good. It's very like you kind of want to see what's the goofy female lead would do, but you really kind of cared more about like the actual story, which I was very surprised about. I'm like, this is going to be really long and boring. And the thing I was most surprised about, yes, there was like rah America war, but there was some real pain and hurt that they showed in 1927, 8 years after the war. And this is what I forget. Like the 20s was still a time that they could show stuff. They could still do stuff and show stuff in cinema. Because I feel like when you watch World War II movies, you never get that much blood. You never get that much like friendly fire killing your own friend. Like there's a lot of real
the storyline is pretty crazy.
Oh, it's rough. It was like
there must not have been like the major stigma or it was just like it was so chaotic that happened and people were just
very
totally
happened.
Understanding about it. Of course, it's always
totally
happened.
Though. Yeah, but that was great because I thought a lot of that was. So yeah, I was blown away how much I enjoyed this movie.
As much as David was waving his arms.
Yeah. So that was my reaction. I just jumped because I couldn't believe I enjoyed this. I figured this was going to be a chore.
Yeah.
And it was an American movie, and this movie's not on like a lot of the top 100 lists.
No, I don't know if I've ever really heard much anything about it. And I felt like I was surprised that it was so popular that many years after the war that they were bringing back or even as recently, like it was just kind of a strange time period beyond it for them to be reenacting things. But I realized that Charles Lindbergh had just done his transatlantic
exactly
flight.
Right.
And so flying was amazingly popular at the time. And so they were able to do this. And the special effects were so amazing. The in-flight cameras, the fact that these guys were actually flying the planes.
Oh, it blew me away. We'll talk about that more, but that was,
all that stuff. And that's like way over my head how they did it and what they did and what they used and all that. But the fact that they did it in 1927 was super cool. And the story was great. I thought it was fun. I felt like towards the last hour of the movie, I just kept thinking, no way in 1927 are they going to make this many twists to the story. Like this is going to be predictable or, like it was a little predictable, but the fact that they went as dark as they did.
For sure.
The fact, it was, and they tied it up nicely too, except for maybe poor Sylvia who's still on the swing, but.
I know, poor Sylvia.
It was a great package of a movie. I couldn't
believe how much I liked it. Yeah.
I liked it a lot.
I thought it was long. It was too long for me. I was pretty blown away by what they captured. Like the war scenes, the dog fighting. It is like, holy cow. And then like the crashes and how much real explosions. Like they blew up a little village.
Yes.
Like with real bombs. And it's like, whoa, this is insane.
That the army gave them. Or somebody did.
It's something like Texas or something, right?
Yeah.
They built the whole town,
Yeah. And even though I think you're saying, Seth, like, it's an American movie, but, like, they were there with the French and they're embedded with all these different units. It didn't feel... jingoistic or whatever with like it's America first. It felt like this is the Allied effort, and they didn't even like
Axis and Allies, man.
America.
I feel like they didn't even really villainize the Germans because they had that scene where Kellerman was like, "Oh,
your guns broke."
jammed.
Yeah, this isn't
a fair fight.
Yeah,
I will take off, and it's like, where. I was one. Speaking of like maybe predictability, like old Jack might be like, this guy's not shooting back at me. Maybe I'll let him go because whatever. And it's like, no, I'm gonna shoot you down, you bastard. Which I think he mouthed every time he was shooting at anybody.
Did he mouth your bastard?
Of course.
I believe so.
Get out of here.
I feel like there was a lot of
open up, he was
That is
saying,
I feel
Right.
like I did a lot of lip reading in this,
That's amazing.
especially when they were in the planes.
definitely some, like, blah, 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 blah. Okay. In like, the
Yeah,
card,
yeah.
I'm like, that's not what he said.
This
No.
That's not what he said.
You guys don't. The cards are not showing all of the words. No.
Yeah, a rewrite there. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot that I thought was great, but I think, and honestly, like many of these movies, more about reading into what was done and how crazy this production was, and actors actually flying planes, and like
oh,
Tom
that's
Cruise
amazing.
and marketing spent so much time and money and effort communicating that they just did this, and sure, those are like jet fighters, and so maybe a little more extreme, but they did this forever ago. Like this, in 1927.
Did you watch that clip where Tom Cruise is like, they've never done this in movies before? And it's like, no, they have, only crazier,
Yeah.
100 years ago. Just nobody's done it since Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and the
literally,
one guy that didn't know how to fly a plane learned by the end of the movie.
and he got motion sickness the whole time.
Yeah. You know what's a fun fact about that is the co-pilot guy for him, who was actually a pilot in the war, ends up being a 4-star general in real life.
Oh,
Yeah, his
Wow.
like helper guy who's
Yeah,
like
that's fun.
ducked down doing the controls. Yeah, ends up being a 4-star
Yeah.
general.
Okay.
yeah. So all
You've-
this amazing,
yeah.
and the stunts throughout were crazy. I think where I struggle is in this transition from vaudeville
Yes.
to film.
The Claire Bow parts, right?
Claire Bow, and even just the like puppy dog acting, Jack specifically,
Yeah,
everything.
Jack. Yeah.
Like, and it's like how people don't
Face for 5 minutes while they look at. I mean, Gary Cooper is handsome, but like just staring awkwardly at a guy for a minute is weird.
I feel like they
So,
wasted less time
There's
with
just scenes like that. So tonally, it gets odd
yeah.
to me, where we transition from a fairly serious display of war and dogfighting to like comic relief and overacting, and even the Dutch character with the tattoo. I didn't mind
him so much, but you're just like, what is this movie tonally?
Yeah.
It's a little all over the place, and I
Yeah.
think that's where I go, okay, it's not my favorite movie.
It's your
Yeah,
hate of Charlie
as you said,
Chaplin coming through. That's what it is. It's your hate of Charlie
there is
Chaplin
a little
coming
bit
through.
of that. Like, I think Buster Keaton, even there's a through line of like, it is comedy.
Yeah.
It's not like melodrama comedy mix and match, and we need Claire Bow in the picture, so we're going to give her weird murdering people in her car stuff and, a teensy bit of a nudity. It's like, what is, and the bubbles, like,
The
what
bubbles
is that
was-
scene?
I agree with the bubbles. That was ridiculously like, don't cut out Gary Cooper, but you can cut the bubbles, and you can cut a lot of Clara Bow's stuff out.
I appreciate the swings in it. And again, for a movie in 1927, it's like, you're making it all up still as you go. It's amazing for all those reasons. But as a movie, and yes, I would probably rather watch this over Pearl Harbor again. And I think Jack and David did better than Josh Hartnett and Ben Affleck did in that movie. So
Josh Hartnett, I haven't heard that name in a while.
also another guy who's gotten much better at acting, I think.
Well, you
as he's
can't
gotten
get much
older.
worse. I mean, let's be real.
Yeah.
That was a rough time.
Yeah, it was fine. It was very long,
Yeah.
and some scenes was like interminable.
Yeah.
So
Okay, Mariah, give us the money stuff on this, because this stuff, we got to talk about the money, and then we'll jump into like the weirdness of this.
I did write a lot of notes. I realized I thought I didn't write notes, and I realized, that was just the first page, and I actually had like 5 pages of notes.
Wow.
Well, the budget for this movie is $2 million. And in 1927, that's the equivalent to $33 million today, or in 2022. So, pretty big budget.
Pretty good.
So
Pretty good.
no movie had been like over $1 million up to that point. That was the other thing too, and it doubled that.
No, and when you consider all the freebies they got from
The military.
The military.
And by freebies, what do you mean, Mariah?
Well, all the planes, all the pilots, all of the infantrymen, all of whatever else they bombs.
Shoot, the location to build said town,
Some
the location
stuff.
to do everything. They had so much access to the military. It was insane.
Which never would happen.
So let's just say, like,
Since then, really, probably.
No, really. I mean, Top Gun again. Like, Maverick is a very good movie to compare this to because it was a blockbuster. It cost the earth. It
Had the cooperation.
Had the cooperation in the military. It was a rah-rah U.S. thing.
Yeah.
Very similar. But we're talking hundreds of millions in today's money if you were doing that today. Like, that many troops. And then to do it so you don't have, like, top secret stuff exposed.
Yeah.
But then back then, did you? This isn't technically the money part, but they were showing off like American weapons also in this movie. They're showing off different things that America had with their tanks.
But they were also talking about the brands of aircraft too. I
Yes.
mean, not just American, but the
German,
the Dutch planes.
Was it the French planes too? I can't remember. Anyways, it was just the French commanders.
Yeah.
But
I think the planes all were World War I era things, although they weren't all accurate to
The Fokkers.
right.
The Fokkers were the Dutch ones, I believe, that were popular at the time.
German, yeah. Deutsch.
No.
Was it actually Dutch?
No, I think they were Belgian or Dutch or something. I don't know. I don't think they were actually. I think they were built somewhere else.
Oh, interesting.
We can fact check that.
We'll fact check that later. I'm like, come on, isn't that the
Sure.
Mercedes thing?
But anyway, budget was $2 million. The movie made $3.8 million. So it was a success.
Yeah. And not only
In
that.
a year.
Oh, that was just the first year? Was $3.8 million? Because this.
No, it's U.S. Canada rentals is the parentheses on this.
Oh, interesting.
And I wonder if they meant by that theaters that.
Oh, because you rent out the theater to show the movie.
Perhaps,
right.
yeah.
Because this movie was not only, it played for 2 years straight. It was like the longest running show like ever at that time.
And a full year in New York before it went to L.A.
Yeah, crazy stuff. And not only that, but
so you also have to consider distribution at the time.
Oh.
Like how you can't just have a nationwide release unless you're like sending out many copies. And so there's like
it's
the
not
premieres
just-
are happening like a year apart.
And it's not just copies, because remember, this is a silent film. They had the orchestra, because they didn't want just to have like the piano player. They wanted to make sure it was no expense was spared. So they had like the full orchestra for every New York showing, and they did it for all the ones that they sent out. Not like the same, obviously, orchestra, but they made sure it was like a full set piece so that everywhere you watched it, even in like nowhere with, Wisconsin, you still got the full experience like they did in New York. Not the full, I'm sure the bands weren't as good or whatever else, or not the full piece, but still,
Sure.
like it was not just like a regular silent film. So when you went to it, it was pageantry. You're paying twice as much to go to this movie, and you're getting a much fuller experience. And oh, by the way, there's freaking color on the screen because they colorized it. Holy crap.
Yeah, the stuff they
I
did.
thought that was like not real. I thought that was like some post something, whatever.
Oh yeah, I was wondering
I
how
had
that
no
was all
idea.
happening till I realized they did do this.
Is this?
And they did the sound effects too in real life, like in the room.
Machine gun.
They would do
I
like,
thought.
and I thought
Yeah.
that was so cool because I'm like, we're watching it like being redone, like the Foley sounds perfect, everything. I'm like, well, but what was it like when they actually watched it the first time?
Yeah.
But it was a
Yes.
symphony with like in the room. I thought that was incredible. I was like, that'd be worth $2.
Yeah. I'm going to insert just a few more numbers here.
Oh, go. Sorry.
Before we get into the special effects, because that is an amazing feat. 300 pilots were involved in this.
Wow.
3,500 infantrymen were involved in this, not to mention all the other extras. And only 2 people were injured in this. One guy broke his neck and came back 6 weeks later.
Yep. That's right.
The other guy died.
Yeah. I was like, someone did die though.
But and they were really
Oh.
and Kellerman was really fearful that they were going to shut the thing down because of this, but they found it to be that it was the pilot's fault.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
I mean,
military's like,
Unfortunately,
"No,
it's still
it's
very
on the
sad.
pilot."
Yeah, but yeah. So considering all the people involved in this, all the explosions, flying planes,
wow.
2 people.
Yeah, like, to add into that fun fact, I think the guy who crashed, he'd crashed previously in a stunt that like went too far. Like he actually went into some barbed wire areas and realized like he was like an inch away from like this giant shard of metal that could have like pierced his neck. He was like, "Whoop, that was close."
Yeah.
You know, did another one and then
Jumped back
broke
in.
his neck falling out.
He
at
was
the plane
supposed
at
to
the end.
completely turn over in the thing, and it was supposed to eject him out of the plane, but instead it went halfway.
Which is
Yeah, you're
crazy
planning to
that
be
they were
ejected.
planning for
Yeah, and then instead it goes halfway, and he gets thrown into the side of something, and that's how he breaks his
Crazy.
Yeah.
neck.
But and then realized later he broke his neck, and then he came back and he worked on like another plane movie shortly after.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay,
Yeah.
No
you
big
guys are
deal.
smart.
Yeah. Were you guys not thinking about the movie Aviator the whole time you were watching this?
It was not, but I did read stuff that like Howard. Apparently, someone showed him the script and he was like, "Meh," but I'm kind of curious how they film it.
Yeah.
And then, like, a huge part of it, like, you know, why there are delays, right? Because they're waiting for clouds.
Same thing. Just like
Because-
They
an
were like,
Aviator.
why haven't you
And so
done
the-
any
yeah.
of this yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he learned for filming. I forget what his was called.
Angels and Hell's
something.
Angels, or not Hell's Angels, but yeah.
Yeah, but he learned about like you need clouds or people can't tell that these planes are moving at all, and so all these delays as they're waiting for cloud cover.
And that was
Yeah.
true in this
Pretty
movie
funny.
too. That was
Yeah.
the exact
Yeah.
same situation. So I thought that was so cool. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
this is legit. Oh, this was before Howard Hughes' movie. This is awesome.
Yep.
So, or right around the same time, I think. It might have been the same year because that's like,
He made his the next year.
yeah, because he made,
I understand it.
well, if the movie's correct, which I assume it kind of is, he made a silent version and then the jazz singer came
Talkies
out and
came
then he
out.
made it
Yeah.
yeah, so that's incredible. Can we jump into these cameras?
Yeah. Get into the
I'd love
cameras.
to jump in.
Oh my goodness. I
talk
did
about
not know that they were literally selfie cams for the pilots. I had no idea that
Oh,
they,
yeah.
I had no
I wasn't even 100% for sure when the actors it was showing them that
Yes.
they were really flying planes.
Oh, and it makes so much sense why, like, the light. I'm like, why did they? I literally was thinking this when I was watching one of the scenes. There's like sunlight on his face and it's horribly lit. Because I'm like, why did they do that? I'm like, oh,
Because it was
'cause
strapped
it's
to the
actually-
engine.
He's flying it by himself, which he learned a couple weeks ago. Imagine you get your actor, hey, welcome to the set. We're gonna just, by the way, we can't have the pilot fly you. So could you learn how to fly this so it looks legit?
Yeah.
Like,
And speaking to the
And also
camera.
smear Hershey's on
Yeah,
yourself
this-
when you're supposed to get shot as
This
you're still
makes-
flying the plane.
yeah, this makes working for Stanley Kubrick like mild. Like, so what you're gonna like? This is hilariously terrifying. Like and
Yes.
and they figured out things like they had to bolt it to the plane so that the shake from one side wasn't as bad as the shake from the other plane because then it's just unusable footage. And there's no image stabilization
Yeah.
on these things.
Take off in the air.
Oh!
Make sure that the German planes are caught in the distance, and then
Yes.
go ahead and land. And say all
and
your
like-
lines.
And let's talk about the huge explosions.
The shots.
Oh, this is just I couldn't I just can't get over it. Like,
Well,
yeah,
yeah. See, when they blew up that town,
right.
Clairbo's under the truck, I was like, well, one, I thought it was very interesting that like they didn't get there in time to save the town.
No.
It was vengeance, right? It was like, and here our boys come to strike vengeance after they decimated this town. Like, in the different movies, like maybe they'd get one off, or they would do something to save the town, and it's like, no, they successfully did their bombing run, and then these guys shoot them down after. It's just such an interesting like
And maybe
I love that about
and maybe
this.
that's really what I mean. That's probably more often than not really what happens is you're really just out
100%.
your turn, your turn, your turn. Not we're all gonna run into each other while this is happening.
Can we talk about?
I just thought it was so interesting. Yeah, no, and then sorry, the last thing in this stunty crazy thing, they would plan these crash sites and like kind of churn up the dirt so it was soft. There are times where I was like, oh, surely that's a miniature.
You're right.
And then I was like, no. I was like, nope, the smoke is big.
Yeah.
This is not a miniature. And then you're like, because that's a pretty good giveaway. Like, smoke, complex smoke is generally big, and simple smoke is small.
Right.
And so it wouldn't just be a little, like, toy on fire. It's like billowing black smoke. You're like, some guy crashed this thing into a field, and you see a body tumbling out, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
How is that man not
amazing.
dead? And did they film the guy dying? You know, like,
but he wasn't.
it's crazy. That stuff, I'm like, nutty. And even how close, when they're in actually the big fight scene, how close the bombs are to the military guys, the actors, the stunt actors.
Right.
It's right on top of them. And apparently, a guy from the bank had come because this movie was very expensive.
Oh, good. You're exactly right.
Yeah, and our director was the one setting off these explosions and got distracted, so he set him off at the wrong time and hurt people. And he's like, "Get the hell out of here!" Like, and the guy's like, "Yeah, do whatever you want. This is fine."
So, the story. Yeah, I heard that same story, and it's, of course you hear from a couple different sources, so it sounds a little different. But it was right when they were about to go off, and I kept thinking about in that scene of Tropical Thunder. When all the bombs went off, but it was right. I think someone got hurt, but I think he also yelled at him before he was in the middle of the scene shooting it. He's like, "You get the hell off my lot, and I don't care who you are." And so then he found out that evening who it was, and so he then got like drunk that night because he's like, "Oh man, I'm gonna get fired from the thing." And then the next morning, all three of them, because there's three main backers, and that was one of the guys. He's like, "Okay, we just saw what you did yesterday. Don't worry about money. Do whatever you want."
Yeah, we love how you're like directing.
We love what you're doing. Okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about this director, because this director is probably the reason why this thing is amazing, and probably the reason why it feels like the tinge of realism to World War I in the fact, I mean, it's not as awful, but still, they let you sit with the awfulness more than I thought a movie at this time would, which was very surprising. So this director is William A. Wellman, and he was a pilot, and he fought in World War I, and he
got the job because of that.
He got the job. He wasn't acclaimed. Now later, he does go on to become 3-time Academy Award nominee for A Star Is Born, for what was the other two that was, but he becomes a rather acclaimed director. But this time he was not an acclaimed director. He did a couple TV shows and a couple movies. But man, I think the ethos of this movie is because he just wanted to make sure that he did the flying right, and he did the war scenes right. It never felt super phony like often like the 60s movies do, like the 60s World War II movies often do, right? This felt, for a movie that's only 8 years after the war, when the U.S. is still like, people still hid war stuff. It's not like they're saying, you didn't hear all these World War gruesome stories until much later. But he still made, well,
and also your stars were already stars that you put in these war movies. And in this, David was a pilot.
Yes. And they cast him because he was a pilot.
Yeah.
And that was great. So I thought this director saved this movie, if not made this movie. He didn't write it or anything, but he's the reason why it feels how it feels. By using actual military, knowing when to be on the actors while they're flying. I mean, think about that. These actors who aren't that like accomplished actors are acting while flying, nose diving
and running the camera, or they have to turn it on, right? I think there's like a string that they pull to turn it on,
and then Willie's down in the back going, "Let's do it again.
Yeah,
let's do it again," because he's in another plane yelling over like, "Take two."
Yeah.
Well, and you hear, if you like any of the behind the scenes of like Top Gun Maverick, like the DP would be like, all right, you're going to fly in this direction because the lighting, they're more worried about the lighting in that one.
Of course.
But like, they didn't know until they shot it all and came back still, right? Like we're modern times and it's still this crazy
so
feat.
hard.
And then it's like, what? Do you know anything worked, until how much later when got the film back? And it's insane.
Yeah.
It's an insane thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But I don't know how to say this, but is this a movie that you should be talking about for snobby movies? And this is kind of the same conversation with maybe Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, because it was so popular. And this is another one which is funny. We watched this movie this weekend. I didn't think this was gonna be one like, oh, this is too popular to be good, or it's too appealing to be snobby, right? But it's hard because this doesn't get the critical acclaim that it did when it came out. Obviously, like it's not groundbreaking in the story. It's not groundbreaking in showing like the fights of war or the awfulness of war. But it is groundbreaking in technology and blockbusterness. And I have seen clips from this movie before, and it's the table scene. The table scene has been shown in a lot of like cinematography channels, because it's one of the first time. Because it's like, how did they do that table scene? Because they can't hang a camera and just go over the tables. So I was watching this.
Can you?
They pull the tables away. So when you see that tracking shot of the tables, the track's underneath the tables, and they're literally pulling the chairs and the tables away.
The room is moving
as they go toward Jack.
Wow.
Are you sure? I thought it actually was a track on the ceiling.
Oh man, I watched it a year, like 6 months ago, so I didn't even double check it. I'm pretty sure like they actually pulled away. I think it's a track on the ceiling and they're pulling it away because it's still a big freaking camera. I think it's both.
Yeah, I think. Well, I know the actors back away.
Yeah,
because it would hit them. But I think there is a track overhead.
That makes sense.
Rather
than underneath. Okay, because we were there.
So the actors had to get out of the way, but I think the tables stay. I think it's running right over
that makes sense. Because I just remember them saying like how they pulled this off back then. Because it's so. I mean, this is the same conversation we have with Red Shoes. How they pull it off back then too.
At the bottom of it, like the camera operator is like laying on his stomach, like looking at it as he's going, because it's all. I mean, it's an insane setup. Like, whatever they did,
and just for to be honest, a dumb scene. That's the part that cracked me up about the whole thing. Like that shot,
it's a reveal of Jack being drunk.
It felt so out of place. All of a sudden, you're on tripod, flying, and now you're doing this crazy in between shot of a dinner scene. It didn't fit for me, even though it's a very cool shot for the time. Yeah. It just felt kind of out of place. But
apparently the director and the DP were like, now that's getting overused. Like, we're never going to do a shot like that ever again. Like, they got sick of it after they did it once. But they did basically recreate it exactly in
yes.
Star Wars.
Not Mandalorian.
The casino one that's so great because of the big cats that make a lot of sense.
Yes, and
I can't remember which. The middle one of the new trilogy. I forget what it was.
right, and that shot has been done a couple other times as well.
Exotic looking.
Oh,
Like,
it's cool.
It's cool.
It's very cool. It doesn't seem like it's 1927 again. A lot of these shots.
The one that really weirded me out was when Jack is like running up a hill and he's like going right into camera.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, whoa, that's a very interesting angle, because there's so much other staging that they do in this movie, which feels very vaudeville. It's a set.
Yes.
We're just capturing some angles.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's stuff like that shows up and you're like, whoa, this is very, like, the camera is not, entrenched in something. You're moving it around, which of course, even though I guess it's attached to these planes, the camera is active a ton in this movie, but very rarely on the ground. And so when you did see it do that, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if jarring's the right word, but it definitely is like, oh, what's going on now?
Yeah.
I mean, those two scenes to me did stand out as like, whoa, these are like experiments you guys did that made it in. And you're like, yeah, that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
It is
Good
funny.
for you guys, just still playing around with the form,
This is gonna be my second Michael Bay reference of the podcast. That's Michael Bay's thing too. He does these camera moves that are so hard to replicate.
Always move the camera.
Right?
Michael Bay always moves the camera.
But he moves it in a way.
Standing there, we're gonna swoop around you, and you're gonna turn.
But
and,
But they were a couple of YouTube channels I follow, like try to replicate Michael Bay movements. They're really freaking hard because he has these huge rigs for just one shot of a guy standing and looking over that whatever's blowing up. Because they're just like these huge sweeping and then stopping at this perfect moment. So like guys are using their little hand gimbals and like a stick and like trying to get the same crazy. Yep. And that's kind of what these guys are doing. They're like, hey, we're going to do stuff that you just can't do. And that's kind of what they did. And I think that's what the director kind of like, well, we have an unlimited budget and we have access to the military.
They
we're
said, go ahead. I'm going to do this.
Oh, so
Who knows if they'll let me do it again.
Oh, and the guts just to do it. Just to make this movie, I just thought was, I mean, I get it. Like it's like when Jurassic Park came out, dinosaurs were really big back then. Flying was really big then. That did help. I feel like the context of Lindbergh and Amelia Earhart, like all of a sudden I'm like, oh, these guys are the biggest superstars on earth, are the pilots. Pilots are like the new rock stars of the world right now. And
I had weird feels reading that Lindbergh quote at the beginning, because it's like, in modern lens, it's like, oh yeah, he was a Nazi sympathizer. This is odd. I know he had a bummer deal with his kid, but like,
but
he kind of becomes un-American shortly after.
Yeah,
this.
but not yet.
And you got to remember,
right up until this point.
Remember Kanye before he went crazy. It's the same sort of conversation. Like Kanye was the instrumental.
Power was a pretty cool song.
Yeah, and Will Smith was, unstoppable. Like there's a lot of things that happen. So you have to take it like in the context of what it is.
Oh yeah.
For sure. The moment.
And he's for this guy who's this national hero and got everyone excited and jazzed about flight, and him saying like the real heroes of flight were these guys who put it on the line in the war.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's probably very little cooler than that to open a movie.
Man.
It's just weird now when I've got all this historical knowledge.
Wait, was he talking about the German pilots?
Also,
the flying circus.
Yeah, the flying circus.
The Red Baron.
Exactly? I was like, does anyone else think Snoopy makes a whole lot more sense
man.
now? I was like, this is Snoopy.
There was a lot of terms I had to look up, like doughboys.
Yes.
I was like, where did that come from? And then it never really clarified doughboys, because it could have been from a couple different places, but
I think it was just sort of pilot guys.
Just got adopted. Well, they were talking about the possibility that it came about during the Spanish American
War?
Also pre
Oh.
Civil War. There.
Yeah. Oh, really? Is it? I figured it's the color of the uniform or something.
No,
That's
it
usually
had to
something like
do.
that.
Most of the explanations had to do with the dirt, or
interesting.
the piping on the uniforms, how they kept it white because they would kick it with like that kind of color.
Foot soldiers.
Yeah, and then it would get runny, and then it looked like they were just kind of covered in flour.
Oh, that's funny. Interesting.
Doughboys.
Speaking of Spanish, did you guys see the Spanish flu reference in the movie?
No.
Yes. So the Spanish flu killed who knows how many people during World War One. Like people don't know.
Yeah. Did you not watch Downton Abbey?
I didn't watch that episode of Downton
They talk
Abbey.
about Clara Bow in Downton Abbey.
Oh, that's
too.
great.
Yeah.
Because Clara Bow goes to go help with the new flu they're fighting.
Sure.
They talk about that in the movie. I'm like, oh, Spanish flu. And I was like, oh.
Well, yeah, I can see that. And it's just it's like a one-off line.
Yes.
Right. And you're like, I don't know what that is.
Well, for me, I was like,
Okay.
my post-COVID brain, I'm like, well, that's the Spanish flu. That killed millions of people that nobody knows about because no one reported their deaths because it was World War One, and they didn't want to know that we were getting killed by not just the enemy, but by the Spanish flu, which everyone was. Yeah, it's crazy stuff. So I thought that was interesting. There's a lot of like little pieces that just made it so much more believable, and I still can't get over how real it felt. Like obviously on the special effects side, of course, that's obscenely. This is like when you watch Buster Keaton for the first time, you're like, what? How is this
Lives
possible?
are literally at stake, right?
Yeah.
It's like
How?
even the dumb Clara driving over the one guy. I went back and I looked at that scene, and it's like
She just bumped him, really.
he's in front of that wheel and has to like dive out of the way last minute. Like he could have died.
Yeah,
that guy for this
sure.
gag, where he's going to be like, I kind of like her, so I'm going to give her a hard time.
Oh, ow,
Pretend
ow.
I'm sleeping.
I'm in a
It's
ditch.
very odd.
Did you know who that guy was, by the
She's
way?
just like, oh, you guys.
No, who
no,
was
I
that
don't.
guy?
Was that the director? It was
No,
one of the,
he was
the
in
producer.
he was in another thing where he got either shot down or something, and he made
he
that
was like-
quote,
He
"Go
said,
get him, guys," or something.
like,
Yeah,
those
but he was-
Fly boys are good for something.
Yeah.
He died in
Yeah,
his
he
shot.
dies. He's shot down or something, and
But
he's like, "Yeah, those.
So there's a lot of like the directors in it, the 80s in it. There's a lot of like
the director's
One of the
wife
director's wife
and
Yes,
daughter
and
are
daughter,
in
isn't
it.
it? Yep,
yeah.
that was great. So there's a lot of like
giving that like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas line,
Yeah.
basically, which permeates the end of the movie. Like,
Yeah.
Yep.
it's war. Who cares? You know, like don't worry about nothing happened that we can't forgive.
Yeah.
Don't worry, it's war. And you go, well, what about all the stuff that wasn't war and I was in Paris?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like Clara Bow
Don't
kind
worry
of felt that way about filming and all of her exploits.
Oh,
We
sure.
talk about how epically slutty she was. She got
in real life.
before this movie started
sure.
filming, she had gotten engaged to Victor Fleming,
Yeah.
the director of Gone with the Wind
Yep.
and Wizard of Oz.
Yep.
And all of a sudden she picks up with Gary Cooper and is flirting with all of the pilots and has many, many reciprocated flirtations with people. And
Yeah. No shit.
and she's
just
cutting
straight
up her
nudity
clothes
in
the
this
whole
movie.
she's cutting up her clothes the whole time. She hated the army the uniform. She's like, I need the belt to be tighter, and she's like cutting V-necks
Cutting
into things and
sleeves.
her sleeves. She's
Those-
like, you
she
can't
was-
see my figure.
That's so good.
She was such a tramp.
It's weird.
Shameless.
And she's not. Doesn't do it for me, Claire. Bow.
Pat,
a lot of it.
She's
is
the it girl.
pancake. I know from It or whatever. The first It. The pancake makeup situation, right, where she's literally wearing like an inch of white clown makeup, is always off-putting to me in these early
Yeah.
movies, where I'm
Yeah.
like, you don't look like a human woman.
No.
No.
You look like Snow White.
And then you're acting like a crazy person.
Yeah.
By the way, Snow White looks
Yeah.
more legit now when you see Clara Bow's makeup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clara Bow.
But so
You go ahead.
go on.
Go ahead. I've got.
I was just going to say, like, I want to touch on, there are there's both male and female nudity in this movie.
Yeah.
There was male nudity?
Butt cheeks.
When was
Butt
that?
cheeks
Butt
in the
cheeks.
enlistment office. People are getting their physical exam in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
27,
you see
dude.
some male butts.
A couple
and then
of them.
straight up just Clara Bow's topless for a scene.
Yeah. Mostly side,
Mostly
and then
side,
all of a sudden
yeah.
there's a front for a second.
Yeah.
And it's like, you could have done the exact same thing and she's a little covered up.
Yeah.
But they're like, no, that's good. Nudity.
It's
Or the
19
MPs that are like, you're so fired and we're going to keep watching.
That's
you.
so funny.
Look at you.
The
But I guess it was
yeah.
pre the
Pre-Hays
what's
Coast.
it code.
Pre-Hays Coast.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, do whatever they want.
when I was thinking about Claire Bow, because I was like, okay, they throw in there. I'm like, the nudity did not surprise me at all because it's pre-Hays Coast and it's like Claire Bow. She's literally there for sex appeal to sell more tickets.
And she knew it.
You know what I
didn't think
also
there was-
thought?
I didn't think there was that much nudity in these movies.
No.
In fact, most of
but-
the nudity in it, I was kind of like, this
It's-
is really
and
non-responsive
and even
type
the
of nudity.
front shot, like it was like maybe if they slowed it down or something.
Yeah,
like you
it
know what I
was so
mean?
Yeah,
Like,
quick.
it's very fast.
it's very
You have to.
and so, but Claire, okay, the movie Babylon. I keep going back to the movie Babylon with Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie. Just came out. A big miss that I thought could be a win, and we talked about this with Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin. That movie was supposed to be all these silent film actresses and actors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Margot Robbie's character feels like the Claire Bow in a lot of ways because they used to say when Claire Bow first got her big break and she went for like a budget studio, when they asked her to cry, she could cry on demand. And not only
the tears
that,
in this were pretty great.
and not
for
only
everybody.
that, if she couldn't cry on demand, you know what she asked them to play? Hush, little darling, don't say a word, like the lullaby, and then she start crying immediately.
Oh.
Like she's had some horrible stuff happen to her growing up,
Which
and
would
that was
explain her wanting to be nude all the time.
well, using whatever she can to
Needing
like,
attention.
yeah,
Trauma.
well, and that so it was just, and that's kind of like in Babylon they play that up a little bit, and I'm like, oh, they literally stole that from Clara Bow, and because
Yeah.
she was the damaged actress before Marilyn Monroe, before name whoever you want to name, that just had a hole that needed to be filled, and so she filled with acting. So yeah, no, that was the Clara Bow character is a whole story to itself, and I'm surprised we don't have like a biopic about just her because I was a little
I do
surprised
feel
about
like-
that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I think all I kept thinking is, I want a movie about the making of this movie. That's all I want. I want a modern movie about the making of this movie.
They barely kept the movie.
Oh
I think
my
and they
gosh,
said they
it
didn't
was
even have
so
any like
good.
stills of the making of the movie. Like there was nothing.
There were some stills of like the cameras behind it, but not too much. Like they had some people's, like you could see someone's pictures of them like when they're mounting it on the like the fuselage of the plane or the types. But yeah, there wasn't that much though. You couldn't find all that much. So, okay. How do we land?
Actually, speaking of stills.
Yeah, go stills before
There's a couple like just getting into like cinematography stuff. Well, one we touched on, like the coloring the fire.
Yes.
Or adding fire through coloring, right? I assume they set off smoke of some kind, right? Like you do in air shows. And they added fire. That was like crazy that was the original thing. I literally thought that was some weird.
Same. I was like, why did they add this in post?
Yeah, I was confused.
But
And
it's
sometimes
original.
it looks
That's actually
terrible,
kind of cool.
and
It's
sometimes
super cool.
It looks good. But then the other, there's some striking shots. One was, and it's very heavy-handed, but the German soldier on the German insignia, like the rock
The Black
form, I
Cross.
thought like that's a pretty dope shot.
Yeah, very
like-
comic book of you, Pat. Very comic book.
Oh, 100%. It is
Yep.
dramatic
Yeah.
and iconic. Like that's a cool shot. Like there's definitely some great setups. But then they tinted the movie so much which I think just happened in Silent Area. I of course didn't research enough about why they were really doing that. I think they wanted to contrast daylight and night, so they blue tinted the night scene, and
so that was on
sepia
purpose.
tinted when it was daylight.
I literally thought it was a restoration problem. That's so funny.
No, I think it was tinted because if you think about
it seemed to be very well restored. So I feel like whatever they did it on originally.
It's a weird thing again since seeing The Passion of Joan of Arc.
Yeah,
where you're like, this could look impeccable at the time, and anytime it doesn't, to me, and even in black and white, like the sepia toning to me just adds a weirdness to movies of this era,
right?
Where I'm like, why did you do that? It could have looked so crisp and clean, and I've seen these people do it before, but a lot of it looked great, and they were doing a bunch of double negative stuff for some actual visual effects. But anyway, I also have a bunch of like weird things I kind of want to talk about, but we probably got to wrap up soon.
Well, give me some of your weirdness, because I want to talk about a couple of we'll try to land this plane.
I have one fun trivia piece that should be a good ending.
Okay, we'll save you to the end. Okay,
thanks.
Okay, go weird, Pat.
The scene that got me the most was him saying goodbye to his dog at the very beginning.
Oh,
like, sure. I literally almost could have cried.
You can tell, like, his parents are so kind of cold and prim and proper, and then he just really gives the dog all the loves.
All the loves.
Oh,
except then he made out with his mom, and that leads me into the heavy petting. Like, that, he gave a passionate kiss to his mom on the way out, which, like, you think you're gonna die, and of course you did. I'm unsettled.
There was you know what,
child to parent kissing.
Yeah, I don't even. This is a lifetime issue for Patrick. This is a lifetime.
I'm not into it. No. He was like passionate, and I'm like, that's his mom, right? Like, it felt
so
romantic.
That's not how you kiss your kids, is what you're saying.
Patrick never has kissed his kids on the mouth ever. Hates that.
That's weird.
Never let them.
Mouth kissing.
He withdrew affection from his children.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can't win them all.
I kissed them on the head.
Yeah. Not the mouth.
Them.
Never.
No mouth kissing.
Never.
Well, I'll let a dog lick me in the mouth. That's fine.
Although watching Quinn as a kissing person, as a young person, he was really disgusting. Nobody wanted to kiss that open face. It was the grossest wide open drooling mouth.
That's pretty good.
It was so cute, but gross.
That was pretty creepy.
Yeah.
So, but then, we mentioned the heavy petting before. Wow, the ending, it was like they were the romance of this movie. David and Jack.
Yeah.
They're so affectionate to each other.
So I've got a couple...
the shooting star kiss at the end is not romancy.
So I always play like era, culture, whatever. I lived in a culture that guys who are not attracted to each other, just super good friends with interdigitation. You'd hold each other's hands. I'd have students who would play with each other's hair, not homosexual. And I'm not saying it's like there's also
the awkward scene where the French officer is giving them their medals, and he's giving them and then you're watching their face. I'm watching their faces the whole time because they look like they're either about to giggle or they're uncomfortable where to look.
The last guy seems very excited.
He was also
he was French.
He was
also French, I believe.
He was a director or he was also a behind the scenes guy.
But played a French officer in it, so I felt like they were more comfortable with that.
They played him so he got pinned and they pricked him.
That
was the gag.
Poked him.
That was another like behind the scenes.
But that scene was interesting because it was like, okay, you can see the cultural like comfort with the French person, and then the two Americans, and they're like,
but they didn't kiss on the cheek like they do now.
No, it was low jaw, neck.
Low jaw. So
nape of the neck.
I can't believe going to another book I've read, but one of the books I was reading, it's the smell
Yeah,
of
we get
people.
it, Seth. You read.
I don't read. I listen to on like Audible, so that's different. I cheat. But the smell of people. I wonder back then if that was a thing too. Like the kiss was lower, so you smelled each other too. That's the first thing I thought. I miss your musk.
Your musk, yeah,
because it wasn't
that.
like people didn't smell like.
Well, not the
shoulders.
face. You get the Spanish flu.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah,
Stick
and
with the
then
neck.
That scene also reminded me, like I was like, oh, I need to look at salutes from around the world, because we have the American salute, and then we've got the kind of limp hand,
like
French thing.
France. Everything about France. I was like, yep, that makes sense.
And it's like, is that what their salute was? You know, like
it feels a little bit like Mel Brooks or something.
Yes.
President Scrooge. It's President Scrooge. Yeah.
Oh, it's great.
It seems like it's probably not what it is today.
Yeah.
No.
And then the last thing where I'm like, what was this scene? They're coming into Paris, pairing it up. He's riding the horse. They steal a parasol from some lady.
And everyone's
just
okay with
laughing it up.
this. The street.
Like, oh, these. And then there's a line like, oh, he got in a peach of a fight with a bunch of waiters.
Yeah.
And you're like, what's that about?
Yeah.
And now he's
What
moving
is
on to this
happening?
other thing. Yeah.
It's amazing.
It was great. They all thought it like the traffic cop was like, oh, you guys.
Yeah, a bunch of rascals
On the
and you're
horses,
like, what is
stolen
going on?
parasols.
Yep.
And
Oh,
the other
it's
guy's
great.
mixing his hat up. Okay, and then we don't even have to get into the bubbles and the choice of that, which is
Oh,
crazy.
Everyone's
This
in
is
But
agreement.
why was that lady so interested in getting him home? What was she gonna do? Like,
They
it
just
felt very
Dibs.
assaulty
Yeah.
oh funny.
because he is blackout drunk.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it was a weird. Like, I couldn't figure out like what was her motivation, which is a weird question.
They already spent the time together. She was getting what was hers, guys. She was getting what was
invested
hers.
in the
Exactly
evening.
right. It's not her fault that he can't handle a drink.
She was going to have to start all over.
Exactly
if
right.
he switched.
Like she's put her time in, Pat.
And I know these. It's like a naive thing. Like, I know what she was after, but it was so weird
That's funny.
how like forceful it was. And then, why did the lady in the bathroom have an entire wardrobe available to any sad woman coming in?
Because
that
it
was
was
great.
it was
Wearing
like
your
the
military
club
uniform?
it was like the club performers costumes. Like, hey,
was
come
great.
here.
Yeah,
like,
it
I'm pretty
wasn't-
sure she wasn't allowed to do that. Plus, was she like a bathroom
Who was
attendant?
this lady?
She was like a
She didn't look like she
fortune
was
teller.
attending.
No, she was like
Dark
a fortune
clothes.
teller
I
sitting
thought-
there, like
yeah.
some gypsy that just wheeled in her like
Gets into
costumes or fairy godmother.
Clara Bow's whole role in this movie is kind of superfluous, and obviously just there to get butts and seats.
Yeah.
Which, getting back to Seth's point earlier, this is like big name Pearl Harbor. We got Ben Affleck. We got Josh Hartnett. We got
Oh,
forget-
remember?
Kate
Baldwin.
Beckinsale.
Remember when Josh Hartnett was a big name? Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. Sorry, Josh. Remember when you were a big name?
He's very good in 30 Days of Night and Penny Dreadful.
Yeah,
So there you go.
That's it.
Shout out Josh Hartnett.
There you
Couple
go,
good
buddy.
things. Anyway, those are my
that's a good one.
those are my things. Also, crazy German blimp design.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They were hanging
I
out.
was
love that
fun.
they included
Weird
those.
That was fun.
Good stuff.
And getting to show them parachuting out before they shot down the thing. So it was like, okay, yeah. I feel like so
Burst
many of
into
those
flame.
bits and pieces were a little more realistic. Like, they would have had time to jump out with a parachute. They saw the plane coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were right up on him before they shot.
Yeah.
So, anyway, those are my.
Okay, so my take is 1927 was one heck of a year for film. That's my quick take. Movies that came out in 1927 include Metropolis, one from Fritz Yang, sorry, and then of course this movie, which is won the Academy Awards. We got The Jazz Singer, so the first talkie. We also have King of Kings, one of the seminal Jesus picks, which is still people reference a lot. You also have Trolley Troubles.
Ooh.
That's right.
Which.
Walt Disney's pre-Mickey Mouse.
How long was it?
Oh.
6 minutes.
6 minutes. That counts as one of the movies.
Well, it
up
doesn't
for...
count, but it was kind of a fun little like.
But it did come
This
out
is
that
like
year.
that was
That's with Oswald the Lucky
Oswald
Rabbit.
the Lucky Rabbit, exactly right. Who now is owned by Disney once again. But it was just kind of like there was a lot of like. It was a very fun time in cinema of just craziness. Like it's just
Well, and also considering
They're figuring it out.
the first ever Academy Awards too,
Exactly
and
right.
so and it was counting 27 and 28 in the because I think the awards happened in late 28 or 29. So it was
think
it
it's
was like
29.
2 years they were counting for
Yeah.
this first one.
And also, it was like 6 minutes long. or
Yeah,
something,
it was like
right,
5
this ceremony.
minutes on the radio. Yeah.
You can't get through one speech now for 6
No,
minutes.
it's like we start it after they've been sitting there for 5 hours in these outfits and they're starving.
Oh my
and
gosh.
well, let me. Shall I?
Yeah, bring us home, Mariah.
End
I'm
on a high
excited.
note?
Where are you gonna take us home?
If you
I'm
watch
excited.
this movie, you're probably feeling like poor David.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
maybe not poor Sylvia, but it did kind of leave her with like a cliffhanger.
Yeah, for sure.
You'll be happy to know that these actors married each other, and were married well into the 40s.
David and Sylvia?
Yes.
Oh, that's hilarious.
They end up together. So, there's kind of like a
Yeah.
off into the sunset. They had a happy ending for at least 20 years.
Hey, in Hollywood, 20 years
Yeah.
is nothing.
Well into the 40s, and then
Sure.
you're saying then they did divorce, or did one of them die?
I read into the 40s. I'm not sure. I
That's
didn't finish.
great.
I don't
Oh,
know
that's
where
pretty
it
funny.
ended. We're just
I like to
starting with
think
the
that
happy
one of them
ending.
died.
Let's like to think that.
Murdered by the other one.
All
of
that
course.
smoke inhalation from the pilots and the crashing and
reals.
all the
Oh,
things.
broken necks. Okay, guys, this is the part you hate. The movie review. Write your one-line movie review on the spot.
Oh my gosh!
Here
I
we go.
forgot we
Do you want to start it off?
I want you to start.
All right, I'll start off since I'm putting you through this pain. The original blockbuster does not disappoint in 2023, aside from some clunky appearances by the infamous Clara Bow. This movie still delivers. Boom. Just made that up, guys, right now. Wow. No pre-show.
This is hard.
The last time you wrote it
It
down,
is
do you need a pen?
I have a highlighter right here in my hand.
Harder, right? You're just coloring Gary Cooper. That's all you're doing right now.
Yeah.
He looks good in orange.
His hat is orange now.
He
He's
does.
the man in the orange
The
hat.
man in the orange hat.
1927's Wings is a blockbuster spectacle, and although uneven, still is better than Pearl Harbor.
That's pretty good. That's funny.
review.
Still plays better than Pearl Harbor. That's good. Have to cuddle this dead air in post.
Yeah.
I think I got something like World War I has never felt so real on film.
I mean,
This movie is an epic minus the unnecessary Clara Bow
and the drunk scene.
and the bubbles.
And the bubbles.
Yeah.
Despite Clara Bow and the bubbles, I thought it was very fun to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have cut about 20, 30 minutes out of it. And because really anything over 2 hours, especially if we're talking foreign or silent, makes it very difficult.
It
I-
does
For-
have an intermission.
for
I've
people
got a
in
hack for you, guys.
2023.
I've got a hack for you. Go to YouTube, watch the free version, watch it at 1.5 speed. You're welcome, listener. That'll save you. If you watch this movie at 1.5
These planes
speed,
go way faster.
way
They
faster.
sure do.
People
Way
are
more intense.
running. It's like you're camping the whole time. It's just intense.
Also, I would also like
Interesting.
to thumbs up to the tears. Everybody had some pretty great looking
Yeah,
tears.
they had some pretty
in
good
this.
tears.
I liked it.
You know what makes me cry? Coming to an end of an episode, guys. And I'm afraid we're there. So watch our fake tears as we
Boo.
say, guys, thanks for being here for another episode of How to Be a Movie Snob. I'm your host, Seth. joined by
Mariah.
and
Patrick.
And we're here just trying to take one step closer to become movie snobs, guys. Keep watching movies, keep listening, hit that subscribe button or whatever you're doing, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't do the check. We got to do the okay.
Sorry.
It's like, okay, check. That was kind
All
of a
set.
cute moment.
All
too.
set?
All set. That's what it was.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, that was sad.
It was a bromance movie.
When he left him hanging.
Oh, and that's how he died. Oh, I forgot about that
The
one.
bear.
They forgot their
Oh,
Lucky
the bear.
Charms.
We didn't even talk about the Lucky Charms because they're magically delicious.
And the
Lucky
Dutch guy tried to go out there with the jiggly
It's just so
bicep.
bad. I can't believe we're still talking. That was so funny.
Oh, we missed some
Oh
highlights.
my gosh, this is a great movie, guys. Watch it. It's
So
not.
much
It's,
movie.
it's pretty good. Is it snobby? Do we even answer that question? Is it snobby?
It's snobby because it's the first
Of many
picture
things.
winner,
Okay, that's fine.
debatably,
Sure.
with some.
And it's silent.
That's
Sunrise.
fine. Okay, top 100.
And
we'll
it's
see.
like, you can be like, Tom Cruise is a liar. They did this way
Yeah,
before.
Tom
Also,
Cruise.
proving him wrong is worth it.
Yeah.
Snobby enough.
I mean,
right there.
other than
Yeah.
obviously proving wrong for Scientology, but other stuff too is nice.
But for
Yeah.
this specifically,
That's true.
caught you in a lie, dude.
one lie, a lie.
This one time.
This one time,
We
never
got you.
again. That's right. Okay, for reals, guys. Bye. See you next week. Love you.
Bye bye.
Keep listening. Bye.
Bye.